the Bloc continuing to support these measures.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm pleased to participate in the debate concerning Motion 515, which states that, in the opinion of the House, the government should continue to recognize the vital role of older workers in the Canadian economy and ensure its labour market programs and policies encourage older workers to contribute their skills and experience in the Canadian workforce. Madam Speaker, this is a pretty innocuous motion. Of course, I support it. Anybody would be foolish not to, I think. But I'm left with the question, what will this motion do? I know that for private members' bills and motions, in order for them to be affected by government, it can't trigger a royal recommendation, so it can't be a money bill, so to speak. So private members' bills and motions are somewhat constrained in how they're drafted, but there's still a lot of room to draft motions and bills that actually have substance. We are sent here to be legislators, after all, Madam Speaker. Recognizing and supporting older workers is not only laudable, but it is actually essential. The problem is that the rhetoric of the motion doesn't make even a baby step towards that goal. My colleague from Hamilton Mountain spoke to this motion earlier in the debate, and she said, I'll quote her, she said, "It is as inoffensive as it is ineffective." So I would like to actually use my time in the House to move beyond the empty words in this motion and actually address what needs to happen if we want to do more than talk the talk, if we want to actually walk the walk, Madam Speaker. So I want to use my time to discuss the real issues facing older workers in Canada. Madam Speaker, older workers won't be workers forever, obviously, and we need to consider life after work. A new survey confirms what the NDP has been saying for a long time, that improving the Canadian pension plan, the Canada Pension Plan, is the best way to secure a comfortable retirement for all Canadians. And the survey found a whopping 76% of Canadians want the government to increase CPP benefits. But that flies in the face of the Prime Minister's recent decision to ignore the CPP in favour of a private sector retirement plan. This survey also reinforces the New Democrat Retirement Security Plan. Our plan proposes a phased-in doubling of CPP benefits to $1,868 a month. A full 93% of Canadians are already members of the CPP. It's low cost, secure, and inflation protected. And that really makes it the best retirement option out there. Canadians know it, and New Democrats know it, but this Conservative government still doesn't have a clue. Canada is facing a retirement crisis. The recession exposed deep flaws in the way that we prepare for retirement. Families have lost their savings, and they simply don't have enough to support themselves. And that's why the NDP wants to take a lead on pension reform. In addition to raising CPP, we want to protect workplace pensions from corporate creditors and raise the GIS to lift seniors out of poverty. While the Prime Minister is ignoring the crisis, we're taking leadership and actually proposing practical solutions to make Canadians' lives better. Madam Speaker, as I said, the recession did reveal deep cracks in Canada's retirement security plan because years of savings suddenly vanished, leaving millions of Canadians unprepared for the future. And as I said, we did take the lead on calling for comprehensive reform to the Canada Pension Plan, like proposing doubling of the maximum monthly payout over time to ensure that all Canadians can retire comfortably. The Conservative government seemed on board, hinting for nearly a year that they would improve the CPP, but then they abruptly changed their mind. In December, the Finance Minister announced that the government would ignore the CPP, choosing instead to introduce a private sector plan administered by financial institutions. Pension advocates and most provincial leaders expressed shock and disappointment, including provincial leader in Nova Scotia and the Minister of Finance in Nova Scotia. Why would the government abandon the CPP, which is secure and portable and low cost, they asked. It makes no sense. And why would they turn over retirement savings to the very financial institutions whose outrageous management fees can wipe out up to 50% of a person's pension contributions over a lifetime? Their plan just doesn't make sense, Madam Speaker. for older workers and when older workers move into retirement. Canada is in a pension crisis, and that's why the NDP will continue to push for practical reforms to the CPP, ones that benefit Canadians and not the big banks. Madam Speaker, older workers are disproportionately represented among the long-term unemployed. And this is especially true, it is true across Canada, but it's especially true across the industrial heartland of our country. These companies were institutions in our communities. They were unionized workplaces where seniority mattered and where companies had the benefit of the skills, experience, and expertise of their long-tenured workers. But a senior workforce also means that when the plant closes, or if it downsizes, 60 to 70% of newly unemployed workers, of the newly unemployed are older workers. One would think then that successive governments might have assumed some responsibility for addressing the unique issues confronting older workers in Canada. But despite often lauding our incredibly skilled older workforce, they did nothing to ensure that these workers would remain a vital force in our economy. To this day, we do not have a manufacturing sector strategy for our economy. To this day, we do not have an auto sector strategy. To this day, we do not have a green industry strategy. And we also don't have an industrial strategy. Instead, we allow foreign companies like US Steel, Xstrata, and Vail to buy up Canadian companies without an ounce of a guarantee that they will protect Canadian jobs. It's absolutely disgraceful. Compounding the problem is the fact that this very government did nothing to protect their jobs in the first place. And it's the same government that is doing nothing to protect displaced older workers. These unemployed Canadians need to keep working. They need a few more years of income before they can retire. They can't cash in their retirement savings because that would be cutting off their nose to spite their face. And surely we can't expect them to sell their homes or to take out a new mortgage. These older Canadians have worked hard all their lives. They play by the rules, and now, through no fault of their own, they've become incapable of building a secure future for themselves and for their families. It's time for the government to step up to the plate and offer real assistance to these displaced workers. But unfortunately, instead of setting up effective programs for worker adjustment, the Conservatives have been setting up barriers to re-employment instead. Madam Speaker, in the time I have left, pardon me, I have a bit of a cold today. In the time that I have left, I'd like to talk a little bit about the health of older workers. To support our senior workers, we need to support their health and the health of their families. So in addition to protecting seniors' financial security through our pension proposals and increasing GIS, we need to look very seriously and critically at the issue of health for older workers and health for retirees. So first and foremost, we need to tackle the issue of social determinants of health. People can't be healthy unless they have a living income, unless they have a home to live in. We need an affordable housing strategy for this country, and I'm very proud that Bill C-304, our bill for a national housing strategy, is actually at committee, hopefully coming back for third reading soon. We need something like a pharmacare strategy, Madam Speaker, to ensure that older workers, that their families, that all Canadians can have access to the prescription medications that they need to stay healthy. We hear time and time again from pharmacists who tell us every single day at least one person, often more, will come up to the counter, will put in their order for their prescription medication, and when they get the package and look at the bill, they walk away and leave it behind. That happens every day, Madam Speaker. In my old job as a community legal worker, I had clients who often would cut their pills in half or take their pills every second day because they simply couldn't afford the cost of the prescription to be able to take their medications the way it was prescribed. So if we had a pharmacare strategy, a universal pharmacare plan, so that all Canadians could actually access the drugs that they need to stay healthy, this would be a definite support to older workers and their families, Madam Speaker. And we can do it if we work with the provinces and territories to actually establish a Canada-wide prescription drug program. Excuse me. And further, Madam Speaker, when it comes to older workers, once they have finished working, we do need to look at a system of home care and long-term care. It's so much less expensive than acute care in a hospital, Madam Speaker, and it makes good financial sense, and it makes good sense for supporting our retired workers. That's all I have to say about this bill. Thank you very much for your time, Madam Speaker.
Resuming debate.